China is in the middle of its most severe COVID outbreak to date, with Shanghai, the international financial hub, as the epicenter. The Communist Party has imposed rigid policies to try to achieve its zero COVID goal, but the result has been a food crisis, medical resources shortages, children separated from their parents, and economic disruption, all challenging the Communist Party's credibility. Robin Brant reports.
More than 2 years after COVID first emerged here, China is still trying to keep it out. And this is how it's doing it. Tens of thousands of people forced into government-run quarantine. In one of China's most advanced cities, the conditions for some are awful.
The moment I really broke down was when I entered the cabin hospital.
We spoke to this 26-year-old. She tested positive a few days ago. In China, symptoms or no symptoms, you are forced to quarantine.
We were first assigned to the shared area. The condition was terrible. My roommate and I found 2 camp beds. There were only 1 restroom and 1 wash basin on each floor. Many sleep next to each other. I was terrified. I broke down and cried.
Forced quarantine is one of 2 often brutal measures that China is using to try to beat COVID. The other is citywide lockdowns. I'm 2 weeks into the one here, along with the other 25 million people that live in Shanghai. Now, for many, that means you can't step out of your gate. For some, it means you can't even go beyond your front door. And also daily worries about food. For some, even about water. For some, the plight is now desperate. A battle to place an order on your phone or a fight with the authorities, all just to get food in. Seeing video of Communist Party officials berated like this is rare here, but the party is digging in. Everyone's being repeatedly tested, but this has become less about science. It's now a battle between a resurgent virus and Communist Party credibility. Every province in this country has been told to prepare facilities like this as fears of a nationwide wave spread. Old, young, up until a few days ago, babies, all were quarantined on their own. In China, it's the price they pay, the sacrifice they make. The official figures suggest the confirmed cases may have started to fall yesterday, but tipped up again today. Those figures also claim there hasn't been a single COVID death this time round, not one. No one has officially died here from COVID, and zero COVID remains the goal. China is still determined to prove it can beat nature. Robin Brant, BBC News, lockdown in Shanghai.
Let's talk to Professor Jane Duckett, who is from the University of Glasgow, the director of the Scottish Centre for Chinese Research, and has written a lot on health and social policy in China. Thank you very much for talking to us. Right, what do you think of what's going on there?
Yeah, it's. I think we're getting to the crunch point here. It's been a question for many people, the last few months really, about whether Chinese government could really, contain COVID, given the Omicron variant being so transmissible, and now, at the sharp end, and it's getting increasingly difficult to balance those economic and social costs of these lockdowns against the chances of, hospitals being overwhelmed and high numbers of deaths. And I think it's they're being tested to the limit, really, especially given Shanghai is such an important part of the economy and is very linked to the outside world. So it's kind of, well connected, and it's more difficult to hide the problems there.
And so is the zero tolerance to COVID going to have to give?
There's no sign of that yet. I think they're really hanging in there, as your correspondent there said. The Xi Jinping and the leadership they've for almost 2 years now been building their political capital on the low number of deaths from COVID. And they've been touting for a long time that this is a sign of, the superiority of China's political system compared with the West. It would be really damaging for them politically, really, to see that undermined and to see deaths rising. So I think they're going to hang on as long as they can. But the economic costs are rising now, particularly Shanghai. It's a really important part of the economy, the import-export economy as well. supply chains are being disrupted, and so the economic pressures are building, as well as, of course, as you saw from that report, from the social pressures, from the impact on people living in the city.
In terms of the import-export sports, why are they recommending that people stop ordering stuff from abroad?
Well, that's been going on for some time. It's long been a policy to try to minimise infections coming in from outside. It's kind of a strange one because, as we know, scientifically, it's thought to be a low risk issue. Transmission through sort of physical goods, but it seems that perhaps they're trying to obviously stop any source of the import of cases. And they want to be seen to be doing everything that's possible, given the demands on the population at the moment, or some parts of the population.